Today I'm comparing the Nikon D780 to the Sony A7S III, looking at their specs and talking about why someone might want to pick up one camera over the other. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Tim Stolars and I love both these cameras, but I know it's a little odd to be comparing them, and even more odd to own two different camera systems. Very impractical for my lens collection. But given how different these cameras are, and that I've been using them both for a while now, I thought it would be interesting to break down exactly how they differ and what I like and don't like about each system. The biggest difference between these cameras is what they are used for. The Sony A7S III is geared towards video and the D780 is geared towards photography. However, that doesn't mean that each of these cameras can't do what the other camera is best at. The D780 is still a very capable video camera, and it's actually the camera I've been using for all my talking head portions of my YouTube videos. And the A7S III is still a mirrorless camera that is more than capable at taking pictures. So let's talk about what both of these do better than the other and why some of the features make them more suitable for photo or video. The D780 is a DSLR camera with 24.5 megapixels. Those additional megapixels really help with being able to crop in on photos without losing any detail, or creating large prints. Just a little more flexibility in post-production when compared to only 12.1 megapixels that the A7S III has. The larger megapixel count also means that the max resolution of the D780 is 6048 by 4024. This helps it get its single and only very slight advantage in a video feature over the A7S III, which is that it's downsampling from a higher resolution, resulting in an ever so slightly sharper video. The A7S III only has a max resolution of 4240 by 2832, which is a 1:1 readout when shooting 4K. Although this seems like a negative, I'll explain a little later why this has its benefits. Given that the D780 is a DSLR, it has an optical viewfinder, which I've read more photographers prefer, although I personally like the electronic viewfinder that the A7S III has. One of the positives of an OVF is it doesn't drain battery like an EVF would, contributing to the D780's ability to pack approximately 2200 photos in one battery compared to 600 on the A7S III. Another general benefit for the D780 is that it has a slightly larger screen, 3.2 inches versus 3 inches. The screen also has 2.36 million dots versus 1.44 million on the A7S III. The more dots, the sharper the screen is, but by no means would I say that the D780's LCD is twice as sharp as the A7S III. I personally hardly can see the difference, and unless you have them side by side, it's hard to tell that the A7S III even has a smaller screen. Hey, quick 9 seconds of your time. I just want to let you know that I respond to every comment, so leave any questions you may have down below. If you feel like hitting that like button too while you're down there, that would be awesome too. The D780 can shoot a little more photos per second, that is 12 frames per second in live view mode versus 10. And although both cameras have a max shutter speed of 1/8000th of a second, the D780 can do long exposures up to 900 seconds when compared to the far more standard 30 seconds that the A7S III and most other cameras have. A big benefit to the D780 is that it's really more of a hybrid camera. When you put the mirror up, it's very similar to Nikon's mirrorless cameras, which have enhanced video capabilities. It is able to shoot 4K, which combined with its full frame sensor and quality glass will give you very high quality video. And also it has the same phase detection autofocus. Previous DSLR cameras in the D700 family only had contrast detection in live view, which made autofocus bordering on unusable. Here is a clip from when I compared the D780 to the D750. You can see how often the older model has to hunt for focus numerous times while the D780 keeps focus locked on the entire time, and that's because of the new phase detection autofocus. Moving on to the A7S III, it's a mirrorless camera with 12.1 megapixels, which although isn't the best for cropping or blowing up photos, has serious benefits for video. That's because in 4K, the resolution is 1:1 readout off the sensor. This helps with noise as well as video processing significantly faster with less processing power. All in all, this equates to no pixel binning, no line skipping, a significant reduction in rolling shutter, and reduces heat generation, something that plagues other high megapixel cameras like the Canon R5. With its 45 megapixels, it has to work really hard to read out and downsample off of that sensor and is a contributing factor to its overheating issues. Another major benefit for video is having in-camera image stabilization. This is helpful for photos, being able to reduce camera shake at lower shutter speeds, but I find it really helpful with smoothing out micro shakes when shooting video handheld. This benefit is something missing on the D780 and other DSLRs. Then there are the focus points. The A7 A7S III has 759, almost 3 times more than the D780's 273. And this is in live view, as the D780 only has 51 when shooting regular photos. Another autofocus benefit is the A7S III has animal eye autofocus, and the D780 does not. But I've seen that it does not perform nearly as good as the Canon eye autofocus, so I don't think this is a huge advantage. These are all really great features that help the A7S III be a better video camera, but here is what really makes it shine. You have so much more control in video formats you are shooting, as well as more variety in frame rates. The A7S III codecs include H.264 in regular format and intra-frame compression, as well as H.265 codec, which is more compressed, reducing file size, but retains the same amount of detail. Sony decided to have the H.265 codec have the same bitrate as the regular H.264 codec, but have more detail in the same file size. That's 3 codecs, but within each codec, you also have the ability to reduce or increase bitrate. These are all offered in 1080 and 4K no less, while the D780 locks you in at 1 codec, which is just H.264 and only 1 bitrate for each frame rate and resolution. But it's great that the D780 at least does have 4K and 1080p. Now for frame rates, the A7S III wins again with its ability to shoot 4K in 60 and 120 frames per second and up to 240 frames per second in 1080. At least that's what most people and retailers are saying. Unfortunately, the A7S III's webpage, when you hover over the superscript, it indicates that the resolution for 24 frames per second caps at 1408 by 804. This is a definite drop in resolution, but it's still very nice to have a super slow motion option. The D780 can only shoot 4K at 30p, but it can do 1080 at 120p. Then there's the color depth and chroma subsampling. The A7S III lets you pick 10-bit and 8-bit all internally, as well as 422 or 420. In addition, you can also do 16-bit through an external monitor, which is an insane amount of color information. Just like taking raw photos, a higher bitrate gives you a lot more flexibility in post to change the colors and recover highlights or take the details out of the shadows. The D780 only records 8-bit internally, but can do 10-bit externally. For most case scenarios, 10-bit is really more than enough for the average user for enhanced color editing flexibility. Although it's great that the Nikon has the possibility to compete in this feature, the convenience of having it all internally on the Sony is a huge advantage. Similarly to this is the picture profiles. The A7S III just has so many, including S-Log3, which is a very flat picture that maximizes the dynamic range of the camera. The D780 has its own N-Log, but once again, it's only available through an external monitor. Moving on to card slots, both cameras have 2, but the D780 caps out at accepting a UHS 2 card, with the fastest card being a V90, which are fast, being able to sustain write speeds of 720 megabits per second, but the A7S III can take CF Express Type A cards, which are rated for 3200 megabits per second. These cards are insanely expensive though, and there's only 2 video modes that the Sony needs it for. These fast cards also help with clearing the buffer of your camera when you are taking a lot of pictures in a row, so not just a benefit for video. Both cameras are able to write photos to both cards at the same time, creating redundant backups for important jobs where a malfunctioning card would just put you in a very bad position, but only the A7S III can record video to both cards at the same time, which once again in a professional setting where you simply cannot re-record your footage is an absolute must. Talking about the body itself, the A7S III is decently lighter at 650 grams compared to 840 on the D780. And although the Nikon has a larger screen with more dots, I think the Sony A7S III wins overall by having a fully articulated screen, which is by far more useful. The D780 can only shift up and down. The last few benefits are the ISO range is larger on the A7S III, native ISO between 80 and 102,000 and extended to between 40 and 410,000, while the D780 has a native range between 100 and 51,000 and extended between 50 and 204,000. This isn't a huge deal because the footage shot at these extremes will be extremely noisy anyways, but the slightly lower ISO of 80 on the Sony is nice to have in brighter conditions. And then the electronic viewfinder. Like I said earlier, I think I've seen more photographers favor the OVF, but I personally like all the benefits of an EVF, such as seeing how the photo will be exposed right away, and the assistance tools like seeing if you're level, as well as focus or highlight peaking. The EVF can also be useful if you're shooting videos, which a lot of people don't do, but I do sometimes, and when you put it to your eye, it creates a third point of contact, which further reduces micro movements. And finally, the A7S III has a full-size HDMI port when compared to the micro HDMI the D780 has. So those are my cameras, but wait, before you leave, I'm giving away this Zoom H1N field recorder after I make a video about it. There's also some microphones I want to test in the near future, which I plan to give away as well. Let me know in the comments below if you're a new creator that would love to win some free audio gear. Be sure to watch out for my upcoming videos because I'll be doing those giveaways very soon. If you're interested in learning more about the A7S III and its video formats, this video goes into more detail about it. Or maybe you are feeling a little overwhelmed about which video modes work with what memory cards on the A7S III. This video will go into that. Finally, YouTube's algorithm thinks you'll enjoy this video the most. Be sure to check one of those out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.